If we can't trust each other, what's the point of staying together? I can't stand being in a sham marriage. It would be better just to break up. That's what I thought. But there's already a new life growing inside me. I can easily imagine the struggles of being a single mom. Should I not break up with him for the sake of this child? Or maybe... My name is Emma. I'm 28 years old. I work in sales administration at a trading company. Lately, I've been having headaches over my husband, Henry. It seems he's suspicious that I might be cheating on him. Whenever I go out or look at my phone, his mood immediately sours. He bombards me with questions. Where are you? Who are you with? One time, he even questioned my parents to look for signs of cheating. No matter how much I deny it, Henry doesn't seem to be convinced deep down. If you can't prove you're not cheating, then you're obviously cheating. When we first met through a colleague's interaction, he wasn't this distrustful. He was a confident salesperson, a cheerful and optimistic young man. But ever since I found out I was pregnant a few months ago, he's been acting this way. What went wrong? I decided to ask my friend Grace if she had a similar experience. We met at our usual cafe and I took a photo first. I made sure to angle it so you can see it was just the two of us in the cafe. What's the photo for? I'm sending it to Henry to prove I'm not meeting up with another guy, you see. I explained Henry's recent over-the-top suspicions to Grace. I also confided in her about how hard it's been, always being tracked and suspected of cheating. Grace dismissed Henry outright. You're better off without him. He's got quite an imagination. Maybe he's been watching too much drama or reading too many comics. Isn't it strange, Henry? Why did you become like this? Henry became oddly suspicious right around the time I found out I was pregnant. When I talked about it, Grace laughed and said it might be the male version of pregnancy blues. It's called expectant father blue, a change in a man's mental state before and after his wife gives birth. I didn't know men could go through that too. But if I were in Emma's shoes, I'd think about something else. Usually, behind that paranoid thinking lies some guilt. So, what Grace was hinting at was that maybe Henry was the one cheating? Wanting to always know where I am could actually be his way of hiding where he's at. I gladly accepted Grace's offer to find out the truth. If there's nothing, then that's fine. If Grace is right, I'll have to think about what to do next. After talking for a while longer with Grace, I returned home in the evening. Henry and I are living with my parents at their house. We're staying until we save enough money to get our own place. Living close to both our workplaces was one reason we decided to live together. When I got to my room, Henry immediately questioned me. Who did you meet and where? I met Grace at a cafe. I sent you a picture, remember? Anyone could manipulate a photo like that. Clearly, he doesn't trust me at all. I couldn't help but let out a deep sigh. What does it take for you to trust me? Is it that you don't trust me because you're hiding something? As I retorted, Henry yelled, "That's ridiculous!" How can he get mad when he's suspected but has no problem suspecting others? I felt disillusioned with Henry. We've been married for 4 years. I've never felt like I know him less than I do now. This happened on an afternoon when Dad and Mom were out shopping. Henry asked me, "Where were you and what were you doing last Wednesday afternoon?" Last Wednesday afternoon? I think I was at home, just like now. I'm almost due. The baby could come any day now. I was prepared to stay in the maternity ward and had been limiting going out. Despite that. Think? What do you mean, think? That's suspicious. Tell the truth. You're cheating on me, aren't you? Why are you jumping to conclusions? Think about it calmly. I stood up from the sofa and spread my arms in front of Henry. My noticeably round belly stretched the fabric of my lounge dress. What do you think I can do in my final month of pregnancy? Walking is already a struggle. I'm not having an affair. All I care about is giving birth to this child safely. I thought I made it clear that I wasn't cheating, but Henry didn't hear me. Angry and red-faced, he wasn't receiving any of my words. "Shut up, you cheating woman! That child isn't mine! Disappear, both of you!" Furious, Henry kicked my belly. An unthinkable act. I collapsed, overwhelmed by excruciating pain and shock. Heat spread through my lower abdomen. Dizziness and nausea hit me at once. I felt my thighs getting wet. I curled up, clutching my belly. The smell of blood grazed my nose. I didn't do anything wrong. Pale-faced, Henry turned his back to me and left the living room. Overwhelmed by despair, I gradually lost consciousness. When I woke up, I was lying in an OB/GYN hospital bed. My belly was still big. Feeling the baby move, I was relieved for a moment. Mom, who had been watching over me, embraced me tightly. I was told I had fainted and collapsed on the living room floor. My lower back was covered in blood. Dad and Mom, who had just returned from shopping, immediately called an ambulance. Proper care was given, and I was taken to the OB/GYN hospital. Both Dad and Mom were happy that both me and the baby were safe. As for Henry, who had caused this mess, where could he be? I was about to ask when it happened. I felt a different type of pain. It must be labor. I've never felt it before, but it felt that way. I hit the nurse call button. The struggle of childbirth. It was the start of a long, long battle. A few hours later, I gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. I never heard back from Henry, making it a lonely battle right to the end. After the delivery, I returned to my private room where both my dad and Mom were elated. Mom couldn't get enough of her first grandchild and wouldn't let go. Dad, growing impatient, urged her to give him a turn holding the baby. Watching their joy, I felt truly glad I brought this new life into the world. By the way, I'm really concerned about Henry. Wonder where he went. Well, about that, I had finally found my calm. I explained in detail the exchanges I'd had with Henry and what had transpired. The joyful atmosphere evaporated. Both my dad and Mom were visibly angry. He accused you of cheating and kicked you in the stomach? He left you lying there and ran off? Unbelievable! The more I talked, the angrier I felt inside. Henry had endangered not only me, but also our unborn child. On top of that, he abandoned me after physically assaulting me. There's no way I can forgive that. Even if anyone else might, I won't. You should take legal action. What he did constitutes assault. He could also be charged with failure to render aid, Dad advised. You see, my dad is a lawyer and knows his way around the law. I absolutely want that to happen, I responded, echoing my dad's sentiments. By this point, I'd already given up on a future with Henry. I can't be with someone who would treat his pregnant wife so cruelly. I'll have to be a single mom, but it can't be helped. I won't let anyone harm my child. Determined, I opened up to my dad. We have cameras at home. I think it captured everything. Until I reached out, not a single email had come from Henry. I told him that the birth had gone smoothly, despite him staying at his parents' home. 3 days later, I summoned Henry to a cafe. I left the baby with Mom and brought Dad along for sport. Henry arrived, looking pale as a ghost. Can't blame him. Next to me stood Dad, his face emotionless and his arms crossed, clearly not here to play games. Before Henry could utter a word, I thrust the prepared divorce papers in front of him. "Sign it right here and now. I'm also going to demand compensation in the divorce case, so be prepared." "Compensation in the divorce case?" I was surprised at Henry's shocked face. Did he think he could do all that and not have to pay compensation in the divorce? Henry started sweating. His eyes were darting all over the place. After pondering for a moment, he suddenly leaned on the table with both hands. "I'm sorry for that day. Please forgive me. I'm begging you, reconsider the divorce." "You think I'm going to forgive and forget? Don't be stupid. No matter how tolerant I am, there's no way I could forgive such violent behavior. And what if Henry acts that way towards our baby in the future? I don't even want to imagine it. I don't want to have any regrets later on. It's just not about the divorce compensation. I'm going to sue you." "Sue me? You can't be serious." I operated my smartphone and displayed a recording from a camera setup in the room. Henry looked startled when he suddenly heard his own shouting voice. "Why? Who recorded this?" "Of course, I set up the camera." It was Grace's idea to set up the camera. We thought we might catch some evidence of his cheating. I never thought it would catch him in an act of violence. I looked down at Henry's dispirited face and continued. "Come on, Henry, tell me. You've been cheating, haven't you? Tell me straight." "I told you I haven't." "Why would you tell such an obvious lie now?" I laid out proof of Henry's infidelity on the table. His face turned pale again. Him entering a hotel with his lover. Walking arm in arm as they left. Holding hands while walking. Sitting close on a bench. Kissing scenes and so on. When I received the investigation results from Grace's detective agency, I was also speechless. Henry was undoubtedly cheating. The woman he's been seeing works in sales at a business partner's company, apparently around the same age as he is. They had been involved since before I found out about my pregnancy. "So, you suspected me of cheating all this time, yet here you are doing it yourself." "I'm really sorry. I was lonely. When I became pregnant, I started to neglect Henry. He said he felt neglected and lonely, so he cheated. What a childish and selfish reason. I became even more disillusioned with Henry. And you kept grilling me about cheating. Why?" "I wanted to keep track of where you were and didn't want to get caught." Henry is just blaming his cheating on my pregnancy. He even tracked me to make sure his secret wouldn't get found out. Crafty. And when confronted, he becomes furious and in the end kicks his wife. He's just the worst. My usually gentle dad seemed quite angry at Henry's words. While replaying the video of the assault, Dad told Henry, "It's too late for apologies and excuses now. You kicked Emma. It's absolutely unacceptable to kick or hit anyone, ever. You will be charged with assault against Emma and could face other charges." Henry knew my dad is a lawyer. Henry dropped his shoulders in resignation. "Truthfully, I'd like to hurt you right here, right now, just like you did to Emma. But that won't make anyone feel better, nor will it make Emma happy. Instead, I intend to take every legal action against you." In the end, Henry cried and apologized. He even stood up to give a deep apology. Of course, I didn't forgive him. And since I didn't, Dad wouldn't either. Henry desperately apologized, but it was futile. I hurried him to sign the divorce papers. I don't want to be married to such a selfish and violent man anymore. Henry signed the papers while crying. I had Dad thoroughly check them. Once it was confirmed there were no mistakes, he became useless to me. Urged by Dad, I shrugged off Henry's desperate attempts and left the cafe. I arranged for all of Henry's belongings in our home to be moved out. They were sent to Henry's parents' house. Of course, I made him cover the costs. The divorce went through without a hitch. I can't tell you how relieved I was to cut ties with that violent man. The divorce proceedings went smoothly, and I even sent a certified letter with return receipt to Henry's mistress to expose the affair. Naturally, I sought compensation from her as well, since she was also married. I later heard that her marriage ended because of the affair with Henry. The two of them became single, but strangely, they broke up soon after. Perhaps neither wanted a relationship burdened with heavy debt. Word got around about Henry's cheating and my ordeal, and it didn't take long for everyone at work to find out. Colleagues sided with me, and Henry became increasingly isolated. It goes without saying, he chose to resign. Later, Henry faced legal consequences for his abuse towards me and ended up with a prison sentence. I wanted him to face the harshest penalty possible, and my wish was granted. Several apology letters arrived from Henry while he was in prison. He was released when our child turned 2. Henry requested visits a few times, but I always refused. The pain of that kick to my belly is still fresh in my mind. I couldn't let a man capable of such violence near our young child. Some might say I'm overly cautious, but I want to avoid the worst-case scenario at all costs. Henry had been paying the divorce compensation with borrowed money. Now he's condemned to a life of debt repayment. I heard from Grace that Henry had a tough time finding a new job. Regular companies wouldn't hire him, so he used the service. It matches ex-convicts with employment opportunities. Initially, he took a job as a truck driver, enticed by a job ad promising no need for prior experience. The content of not having to worry about being bothered by relationships seemed appealing. However, he struggled with sleep and health management. He quitted after just 3 months. He then landed a job in construction, a field always short on. He hauled heavy soil, dug holes with shovels, and broke ground. He wore himself out with physical labor like he'd never experienced. Working outdoors, enduring the sun and wind, proved to be challenging. He was both mentally and physically drained, often working in rough conditions. To make matters worse, many at the construction company were pretty rowdy. Most of the crew were like him, ex-convicts who had served their time and were out. The guidance from the senior workers was rough. They often banged helmets on their heads. Henry was stressed out, couldn't let go of antacids and sleeping pills. Also, construction sites were inherently dangerous. Heavy materials and sharp objects were all around. Large machinery and trucks passed by frequently. Henry, worn out physically and mentally, made a mistake and got injured. He forgot to put on his safety harness and fell from high scaffolding, breaking bones in his arms and legs. That injury made him quit his job in construction. He called me while he was recovering. That's when I heard about everything that had happened to him since he was released from prison. Henry apologized repeatedly for his past actions and wanted to know how the kid was growing up. The conversation inevitably turned to him asking for financial help. He still had a lot of debt and was struggling. I explained politely that I didn't want to be involved anymore and ended the call. When I said goodbye, Henry was crying. I thought he brought it upon himself. I've been living with my parents and the child even after the divorce. Recently, a business client introduced me to a man who, like me, is divorced. He is a salesperson in the same age range as me. Thankfully, he is much kinder than Henry and has a stable income. He was cheated on by his wife, he said. We both shared our stories of betrayal and comforted each other. He is incredibly dedicated to his own children and is very kind to mine as well. With encouragement from those around us, I think we are likely to remarry. My first marriage was a big mistake, but I have no intention of giving up on life. I want to build a warm and happy home with my new partner and children.